Hello, I am Malavika Balamurali. This is my first ever talk on a stage like this. So if I get something wrong or if I trip up, I promise you it's not my fault, it's my brain's fault. So we run on two different wavelengths. So I'm gonna try and do the best I can. Welcome to my wonderful talk, Choose Your Fighter, Spring AI versus LangChain4j. So here's our situation. Our world is relying on artificial intelligence more and more with each coming year, and as a result, there's this little programming language out there, I think it was called Python? Python, yes. It has been growing in popularity like, it's crazy how much more popular Python has become. Now, nothing against Python. It's a beautiful language. I personally like it. But there are a lot of Java people in the world. What about us Java people? What about the people who want to use AI with Java and don't want to swap over to Python because they're so ingrained in Java? So luckily for you guys, I have the perfect solution. There are actually two of them. I'm very generous that way. We have Spring AI and LangChain4j. But you're probably going to ask, what are these? And why is there a bird drinking coffee on the screen? I think that's very unhealthy for this little guy. But let me actually introduce myself before I get into that. So my name is Malavika Balamurali. I'm a computer science major at Kennesaw State University. I'm currently in my third year. I've been working with Java since the 8th version, which I still can't believe it's been so long. We're at 25 now. And I've been with this since 8. That's insane. I've dabbled in a few languages, but Java has to be one of the ones that made a huge impact on me, besides assembly, those who know. So now to jump back in, I'm going to tell you what Spring AI and LangChain4j are in the first place. So first off, we have beautiful, beautiful Spring AI. It's a project within the Spring ecosystem, specifically Spring Boot. And it provides various tools to help developers integrate AI capabilities like LLMs and Gen AI services into their Java applications. It makes it easier for these developers to use stuff like OpenAI, Hugging Face, and locally run models. LangChain4j, on the other hand, is a Java library inspired by Python's LangChain. It provides abstractions and tools like prompt templates and vector stores for building AI applications in Java. It's a lot more model and provider agnostic as well as framework agnostic. And I'll be coming back to that a little bit later. So now, how do these two work? We're going to start off with Spring AI. My slides are very wacky, but we won't worry about that. So the steps are that Spring Boot will start up in your application. The auto configuration will register both your chat model and your embedding model, if you have one. Then configuration will be loaded from either application.yaml or application.properties, depending on which one you choose, and the environment variables as well. Your application will inject a model bean. Very important, this model bean. And then during runtime, you have your prompt template resolved, your parameters will be bound, and your memory will be injected. Then afterwards, you'll have an HTTP request constructed internally, and then the response at the very end will be mapped to Spring AI. Now with LangChain, it's a little bit different. Your application will start up, but you, the developer, will instantiate the model, memory, and whatever tools you'll be using. Your components will be wired explicitly via your code, and your prompt will be constructed inside the program itself. Your memory will be explicitly applied, and the HTTP request is inside the user visible code path. The response will be mapped directly to a domain. Now, how are dependencies handled? Because this is pretty important, I feel. So for Spring AI, you have your LLMs as injectable beans, like I've said. You'll have some starters for your auto config, and that configuration will be externalized. You'll also have some late binding via some profiles. With LangChain4j, your components are manually wired. LangChain4j likes manual. And there will be some constructor level dependency control. There's no runtime magic with LangChain4j. It's all compile time when it comes to dependencies. So now, why does this all matter? You see, AI libraries aren't like logging libraries or JSON parsers. They're not just another dependency. They introduce non-determinism, cost, and external state. The framework that you end up choosing will shape how your application behaves in production. And that's why this comparison matters. It shows you where your complexity will live, especially considering that Java is very heavy in the enterprise. So now there's a split of responsibilities for both Spring AI and LangChain4j. We have, for Spring AI, most of it will be housed in the framework itself, whereas for LangChain4j, it's mostly via the application. Spring AI will treat your AI as an infrastructure, whereas LangChain4j will treat it as application logic. Now, with providers and provider APIs, the APIs are similar, but they're usually never exactly the same. There will be some abstractions to smooth over some differences between them. Spring AI emphasizes swapping providers with configuration, but LangChain4j will want you to emphasize explicit provider control. Like, for example, you might swap between any of these. You might swap between Bedrock and OpenAI, or Azure and something in Ollama, maybe. And the abstraction will reduce coupling. Now, for the prompt lifecycle, prompts aren't just strings. They can evolve faster than business logic itself. Spring AI will optimize for runtime prompt changes, and LangChain4j will optimize for refactor safety and typing. For Spring AI, your prompts will be used as resources. For LangChain4j, your prompts will be your code. Now, for this part, it's just a list of different LLMs that are supported by each framework. Because there are some differences, there are some that aren't supported by LangChain4j or Spring AI. They're still working on that because these are two very maturing, they're very young. They're trying their best to mature. So we have a lot of the big names here, like Anthropic is a big name. We also have 2 versions of OpenAI. I don't know why they did that, but they have 2 versions of OpenAI. And then they also have Perplexity with Spring AI. There's also, for LangChain4j, there are a lot of the same names, but they also add on like Watson and then Cloudflare Workers AI. But largely they'll be the same. If you have a preference on a model, then it's best to check those out with each framework. Now that was a lot to digest. We talked about execution models, prompt lifecycles, and where the complexity in each of these will live. But none of that actually matters unless we see how it feels in real code. So instead of adding more information for you guys, I want to ground everything to make things more concrete. And that is through a demo. And we're gonna talk about something that I personally really, really adore, but a lot of students will look at me with disgust. Like literally, they'll just glare at me for this. And that's calculus. I love calculus, specifically this beautiful symbol right here that we call an integral. We're going to have a chat client utilize a local model in Ollama to tell me what exactly this little symbol is, what exactly the process of integration is. The goal here isn't actually the math behind it, but rather the architecture. And we'll be implementing this through both Spring AI and LangChain4j. Now, there are a few things I want you all to keep in mind with this. because they do vary depending on the tools that we're going to talk about. We have modularity, architecture style, integration, scalability, reusability, configuration, and documentation. Now, documentation is something I'm actually going to talk about later on because you're not going to really see that in the demo. That's just separate. I kept it up there more so for the sake of it. Now, you'll probably just ask, why is this such a simple problem? And well, the answer is some of the simplest things can show the most complex problems. We have the same model here that I'm going to use and the same prompt intent, but different frameworks. And you're going to see how both of them will handle it. Now, a little diagram for you all. With Spring AI, this is how it's going to work. Me, the developer, I am going to run Spring Boot in my Spring AI application. And that is going to call Ollama with Spring AI. It's going to also call specifically on my model Mathstral. Now, for those of you who don't know what Ollama is, it's just locally run models that you can talk to. I am someone who did not want to pay for an OpenAI API key, so the best option for me was to have something locally run. So now for LangChain4j, it's a little bit simpler. We're just going to have a vanilla Java application, and that's going to call on Ollama. Same model, like I said, but it's just going to be simple Java as opposed to something like Spring Boot. Now, LangChain4j, you can integrate frameworks into it, but for the sake of how simple I wanted to make things, it's just going to be normal Java. You can use Quarkus, Spring Boot. Spring Boot, I wonder who else uses that. You can also use Micronaut and Helidon as well with LangChain4j. Now, real quickly, I'm going to pull up our wonderful demo. We're going to start off with Spring AI, but before I do that, actually, if it would allow, oh, you're on the screen. Okay, so one good thing about Spring is that you can just go to start.spring.io, and you can literally just create a project with this beautiful initializer. All you have to do is choose what language you want, what project you want. Like, I wanted to use Maven with my project, so I chose Maven, and then Java. And then you can choose any of these versions of Spring Boot, depending on what exactly you're going for. And then this part right here, what I was talking about earlier with the application.properties and YAML file, yeah, I chose properties for mine, so you can modify that down here. And then the most important part, you can add in all your dependencies right here instead of having to do it all manually. That's one of the good things about Spring to me, how simple it makes everything. And then you can just generate your project files and then open the zip file. It's really nice. Now, to get to my beautiful demo, let me see if I can actually do it like this. I'm going to take this screen. All right. So this is my Spring AI project. Ooh. Okay, we're just going to leave it like that. So now there are a few components with this project. First, we have the POM XML file. This is where most of the dependencies will live. Like, for example, can y'all see that at all? Okay, all right. Ooh, that's big. So we have Java 25 here. That's fine. We also have a web dependency. And here is my Ollama. Oh boy. See what I was talking about earlier with that Ollama dependency? This is where you'll see it. And then we have a few other little things here. We have Spring AI in here. We have Maven, just your normal little dependencies. Application.properties, this is where I define my model. This model that I'm using is called Mathstral because I have a math program and I wanted to solve math questions, so I thought math model would be a good choice. Now, this is our main little chat app. It's quite simple. All I have to do is import the Spring application and then import Spring Boot. And then, honestly, it's just going to run my little app. Now, that's not very important yet without knowing this. So these are my endpoints here. I have a little HTML page, and it's going to show, it's just a small little web page that'll show what I'm talking about and what I want the model to answer. So then we have some get mapping. These are just little endpoints. Now with chatservice.java here, we have my chat model. This is a chat model that will be injected by Spring, and we're going to invoke chatmodel.call down here with a question, which is user input, and that will return a string. Now, there's also a prompt template example that I have, and that shows that we can create a prompt template which is a string, and then we'll be replacing question with a list of variables in this case. And we're still gonna call chatmodel.call, and then we'll call create message down here somewhere. It was down here earlier. And then we also have this generation, and that's going to be converted into a string. We also have a prompt template here. It's going to explain what an integral is in calculus. So now let's run this. So what I'm going to do here is we'll go under Spring Boot, then we'll press run. And so then this will run my program. And then we have this. This is my little web page that'll give us a few answers. Like, I'm going to give the model a question asking what the integral of x to the second power is. And then I press this submit button. I would have already started Llama in the background. And now all we can do is just wait for it to load. And then it gives me, okay. It gives me the answer. And yada da da da. And it compiled and did everything correctly. Everything works. So now, if we had a prompt template, like, let me try doing a derivative this time. Let's see if that works. Technology. Okay, so now, this time it didn't really give me a clear answer, mostly because I wasn't really expecting a big one here. The prompt template has to be more explicitly defined with it, which is why it gave me such an ambiguous answer. Now, that is just on the Spring side. With LangChain4j, it's a little bit simpler than that. My pom.xml right here, we just have these two dependencies. Just brings in LangChain4j and LangChain4j's Llama integration. That does not matter. And then this is my program. So it's got the package, my import statements. We're creating a chat model and setting the base URL down here. In our case, it's going to be 11434. And our model is explicitly defined here. So now we have chatModel.call here as well with the question, and the method will return a string. So we have this question, explain integral calculus, and it's going to print out an answer. Now, to see that in action, all we have to really do is just run it straight from the IDE. And now it takes a little bit of time, of course, but in just a few seconds, you should see a response pop up. All right, so very big response, but it tells us what exactly integral calculus is. It tells us how we can perform operations with it, what the integral symbol itself is, indefinite, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the differences with this. This was just normal Java, like I said. And with Spring AI is directly built off of Spring Boot. So you can see the differences in terms of how I built each of these programs. Okay, now what I'm going to do is stop mirroring. And then I'll go back here if it'll allow me to. Yeah, wait. Okay, there you are. Yeah, hold on. Extend mode is very funny. I'll just say that. Okay, so back to the presentation. We have, oh my God, okay. Here we go. All right, so these are just a few dependencies for both Spring AI and LangChain4j for 3 big providers. They're just new little dependencies. You can even find these on their individual websites, but I just wanted to show how they are, what the differences are, pretty much it. And for Ollama specifically, if you want to change models easily, instead of using Ollama run, you can use something called Ollama serve instead. Now, when I was talking about documentation, we have quite a few resources for both Spring AI and LangChain4j. For Spring AI, we have, well, one, the Spring website. It's pretty useful. They have getting started guides. They also have quick start guides as well. And there's also Beodong, which has a lot of Spring AI information. And then there's also the quick start down there, just in case you need it. Now with LangChain4j, LangChain4j also has their own documentation, and they also have a GitHub repository with various examples for various models. There's also Medium. Medium has a few articles with LangChain4j, just building simple applications. It's kind of like what they have in the Spring docs. Now, the big question, and it's in big text for a reason, which one should you use? Now, this answer might disappoint you, but quite frankly, it's the only answer I can really give. It depends. So the reason it depends is because both Spring AI and LangChain4j, they have their own pros and cons. It's up to the team that's programming to decide which one would suit them better. Depends on your application, depends on your team, what you're more familiar with. If you're more of a Spring person, you're like really into Spring, you're like, oh yeah, I love Spring, then you might want to use Spring AI. you'll be a little more familiar with how to get around it. But if you want to use something like Quarkus or Helidon, or even just plain Java like I did, then LangChain4j might be better for you. Remember, it's all about your application and your team. What you want the application to do, how you want it to run, that's all up to you. So you can choose with that in mind. Thank you. All right, any questions? I'll try my best to answer them, but if I do not know something, I'll let you know. Any questions at all?
Yes. Your personal experience with these libraries.
Ooh, so my personal experiences. So I came across Spring AI first because I happen to know Mr. Glenn. He was the one who told me a little bit about it. I found Spring AI a bit hard to work with at first, mostly because I was a little frazzled while looking at the documentation. There's a bit of a learning curve with it, at least for me, because I was thinking, oh, maybe they'll just give me something straight out of the box. It did not work like that. But their tutorials are very nice. Their reference documents are very well written. I like all of that. LangChain4j, their website is actually really funny to me. Let me just exit out of this. It's the documentation for LangChain, if I can read, which I cannot. Hold on. Let me just take this off this screen, and then I'll just do entire screen here. So LangChain4j's website looks like this, which I was like, oh man. But it's still pretty good. They have getting started guides as well. They have little tutorials. Like, look, chat and language models. I used this tutorial for my project. And then they also have like image models as well. Where are yeah, like tutorials. There are a lot of tutorials for LangChain4j and Spring AI. And I think they're really nice, but for LangChain, I found it a little bit more streamlined. It's really up to you in the end. Your level of understanding is a lot different from mine. I'm still a student, so I'm still figuring some things out. But yeah, I personally thought this was a lot easier to understand. But Spring AI, oh, they've got a lot. Like, I love this RESTful web service. This is partially something I used for my project, but they have a lot like, well, that doesn't help me, but you get the picture, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So can I blend the apps? Can I use like Spring as Spring Boot and then put LangChain4j in?
You could, yeah. There's a little integration with Spring, like I mentioned. Where are you? I forgot where exactly it was, but it does work with Spring Boot. If you do not want to use Spring AI, but you want to use something like this and you love Spring Boot, you can use LangChain4j with it. It works perfectly fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.